you're at. It can vary a little bit, but that's and again, you have to do your time zones. But yeah, definitely, it was early in the morning on on yesterday, so on 9/22. So yeah, that's a big marker. It always shifts the energy, and of course, in the northern hemisphere, we always start to see the leaves changing, and you can feel it. You can really feel the energy. It's a big shift.
Yeah, I definitely feel it. I actually felt a big bump in energy. I was surprised when the equinox came over our way. I felt a big bump in energy. I'm
Yeah,
happy. I'm happy for
everybody's
that.
going to feel it their own way. Of course, you just had a nice bunch of dental work done that really helped you. So that was probably a big pickup there too.
Oh no, I sure did. And I wanted to share that with some folks because a lot of our viewers are into their health. I can tell from the comments. And so I had an old root canal that was done 7 years ago, and everyone says, oh God, don't get a root canal, pull your tooth. I didn't want to do that. I've got all 32 teeth. I want to keep it that way. So, but I did this root canal 7 years ago, and apparently it wasn't done correctly. And I went to see a holistic dentist this time around. And I tried to find a holistic dentist then, but I couldn't. I found an excellent holistic dentist this time around. She went into the tooth, cleaned it out. She cleaned it out in such a way that just blew my mind, put a ton of ozone in there and used a red light, laser, incredible. And I'm telling you, 30 minutes after that, my energy was all over the place.
Yeah,
I
you were
mean,
singing songs. Yep.
singing, I used to sing opera. I was like singing, just everything, just feeling amazing. And I still feel that way. But then
Right.
came the fall equinox. So that just helped even more.
Yeah,
People are
absolutely.
coming in. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hope you had a good weekend. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah. So we got good energy this morning, anyhow. We have a moon conjunct Jupiter, and then of course that'll be for anybody anywhere on the planet, depending on your time zone. But Pacific time, that's going to be exact right at about 3:39 today p.m. So that's always a good energy. Moon conjunct Jupiter is always uplifting. People feel better on it. And again, that's just the lunar aspects. We get a lot more things going on other than that. But that's a good one. I always like that. I always notice when Moon is making positive aspects to Jupiter or Venus, everybody is more happy. Now, you might see a few people who aren't. They might have bad transits going on, so on and so forth. But overall, this is an uplifting energy. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I
So
feel I
we
feel
like
it.
that.
I'm feeling
Yeah,
everything lately.
yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
So speak to the equinox a little bit, Jeff, for people who are in different places in the world.
well, I mean, the equinox is when the ecliptic path of the sun and the earth are exactly even. The days and the nights are even. Now, depending on where you are, it varies drastically at what time it's going to happen. Of course, you get time zone changes, etc. But if you're down beneath the equator, it goes backwards. That's actually their spring. That's the beginning of their spring. And of course, in the northern hemisphere, above the equator, it's the beginning of our fall. And again, the word fall comes from, the ecliptic or the sun starts setting, earlier and earlier and earlier. It falls quicker. That's where it got its name. So it's interesting. I had mentioned on that real brief video that I did here on Saturday night that there are many places in India, Europe, the United States. They always like to make out the American Indians as primitive. One of the most advanced monoliths and an extremely complex place is Chaco Canyon, where they actually aligned up all these different rock formations to line up with the solstices and equinoctial points. The pyramid in Egypt is believed to line up with that. There's places in India, Stonehenge lines up with certain fixed stars and solstice and equinoctial points. So this was well known, and it's also the measurement of our solar system as it does what they call a precession around the central sun. So it's a really powerful thing. And of course, every just short of 26,000 years, the equinoxes will go around the entire circle of the sidereal zodiac, which is very, very powerful. And it's a very interesting thing to watch up against fixed stars. We actually move 1 degree every 72 years. And isn't that interesting? 72 angels. The 72 is a very there comes that number nine again, spiritual completion on the physical plane. So there's a lot to the solstices and equinoctial points. They really bring in a powerful energy. And a lot of times, this is really a wonderful time to do cleansing, parasite cleansing, or whatever it is that you do. You got to be careful with parasites because they're on everything. I don't care if you're a vegan, an herbivore, carnivore, whatever you are. Parasites are in everything. The thing you got to watch is a lot of people are on medications and don't do parasite cleansings unless you check with, a doctor and pharmacist because it's powerful stuff. But I love taking wormwood, walnut hull, and cloves. It's probably one of the best cleansers for 90% of the parasites you're going to find. And I think parasites are the cause of some real interesting diseases. And speaking of the American Indians, they knew about that, and so did many ancient cultures. Nicholas Culpeper, back in the 1600s, all the way back into Egypt, parasite cleansing was a big deal because it's always attached to everything. And speaking of teeth, a lot of dentists are finding it in the teeth. Why don't you tell them what you heard
Oh
about that?
gosh. Yeah. Well, my dentist was telling me that if she's seeing parasites in people's mouths, in teeth, when she goes to do whatever she needs to do. She didn't see any in my mouth, but like you were saying, we all have parasites. They're going to come in no matter what you're eating, no matter what
Yeah,
you're doing. And another good thing to take is apple cider vinegar.
that's right. I
Take,
was going to
take
mention
a
that.
tablespoon of that every
Right.
morning. Be on track. Yep. Yep.
Really
That's
good.
really
Yeah,
good.
there's a lot of great herbs. One of my favorite books, it was out of print for a while, and I think they've just reignited again. Is called Parasites: The Enemy Within by Hannah Kroger. Probably one of the most definitive books on parasites I've ever read. And of course, Dr. Helga Clark, she had a real good. She said The Cure for All Diseases, which was a book that she wrote, and of course the Cure for Cancer too, which that's a dirty word in allopathic medicine. Cure, they want you sick and on pharmaceuticals. But I can tell you, the older a person gets, the more the immune system starts coming down. And a lot of doctors that I've got as clients are telling me they're finding all kinds of parasites all over the place in people. And if you cleanse those on a regular basis, which you can do with herbs, you just got to be careful. If you're on heart medications or anything else, don't do it unless you're under the guidance of a doctor because you don't want to combine those powerful herbs with any meds that you might be on. So it's really wise to get guidance on that. But if you're, able to do it, you can follow the protocols that Dr. Helga Clark's got. You can jump right on Amazon. I call it Amazcron, and you can get the parasite cleansing, the wormwood, the walnut hull, and the cloves are actually in a package for like $60. You can get it. And it actually has the instructions on how you start at a low dose and you work up to a peak. And it's really good for cleansing. In fact, I think you're doing that right now, aren't you, Ella?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
You know all about my health routine. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I am.
I
Definitely.
remember I forwarded you the link to get it. So that's why I
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've had it for a while. I've had it sitting here for a while and I've just had different things going on. And, they say when you go on an intense parasite cleanse like that, you don't know what to expect, actually. So you could feel great. You could feel sick for a little while, depending upon if you have parasites, and if you do, what the situation is,
Yeah,
So,
the
but
general
yeah.
consensus is if you get sick, like if you get diarrhea or whatever you get, that means you got parasites. And when these herbs kill them, they say the bacteria from killing them, you have to cleanse out of your body. So it's really important to, eat well and push a lot of water and
Yeah.
fiber. And, it can really cleanse you up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Jeff, a lot of people have been asking for a show just about fixed stars. So many of us are fascinated by these fixed stars. So I think that's something we've got to do. We really
Oh,
want you
yeah.
to jump into
Yeah.
that.
Well, there's a lot to that. I got to say, fixed stars are the secret helpers or hinderers. One of my favorite astrologers in the West was Guido Bonatti. He lived in the 11th century and actually the 12th century, but the 1100s, they call it the 12th century. And he had so much dedication to fixed stars, and he had all these rules where when they were applying by so many minutes of arc, it would be a secret helper or hinderer, depending on the power of the fixed star. Which, speaking of which, this is what I've been talking about, is Uranus. See, this is a very special time of year right now. The ancient Druid holiday is where Halloween came from. And of course, why does Halloween have ghosts and goblins and all this stuff and all the things that everybody puts on their lawns? Little kids dress up and they go trick or treating. Well, interesting why that is, because it was known that as the Earth cycled around every year, that when it got into the sidereal constellation opposite of Taurus, that is exactly when this would be the Pleiades, and the astral planes and the physical worlds were believed to be close together this time of year, where the sun is at this time of year and the Earth. It's actually the Earth going through it in the sidereal zodiac. And this is also parallel to a Hindu holiday where they really honor the dead and look at spiritual practices where they honor the dead during this time. And that's, of course, where Halloween turned into this candy selling, teeth rotting, speaking of teeth, holiday. And the powerful thing about it, and this is what I've been speaking about, now I'm going back to fixed stars here, that Uranus every 84 years crosses through this section. Now, we do it every year with the Earth, but we are crossing through this section right now with Uranus, or I should say Uranus is. And it's moving retrograde to a conjunction of Algol, also known as Caput Algol. Always considered one of the more evil stars in the sky. Some people say it is the most evil star in the sky, which I don't know if that's true. There's a lot of stars out there, and some of them are really good, and some of them are really evil. And I can tell you Caput Algol is. In fact, that was the star William Lilly had seen when King Charles had asked him, should I go against Parliament in the 1600s? And in an interrogation, he saw his signifactor conjuncting that fixed star, and he said, don't do it. He said, you're going to lose. And he said, you could lose your head. Well, that's exactly what happened. King Charles did go against the Parliament. They had a war, and his army went against the parliamentary army, and he got caught. He got defeated and caught. And of course, history will show he got beheaded. So the metaphor is with Uranus going back towards this fixed star, this has always traditionally shown a lot of trouble in the world. And what have we got going on right now? Look at the Middle East, look at, Ukraine and Russia and other things that are brewing that we don't get to hear about on the propaganda news. And it's a very dangerous world right now. In fact, 84 years ago, Hitler was busy attacking London, bombing London, and the Battle of Dunkirk was just going on, all this kind of stuff. So they were marching into France. And, let's hope nothing like this happens, but we're in a very dangerous situation right now, globally. And we've got the BRICS nations banding together. We've got chaos here in the United States. And it's a very precarious position right now. And let's hope nothing happens. But fixed stars often show these very powerful energies that are happening. And again, we've got Uranus going back to that fixed star. And after that, we have all through the latter part of October into November, it's approaching another fixed star, Denebola. If you look at this, there's a ton of fixed stars out there. The word fixed star just simply means that they don't move as fast as the planet. And they don't. That's why they're really not fixed. Everything is moving. Maybe there's something to the Big Bang Theory where everything was created, boof, and it happened. But everything seems to be moving. And of course, astronomers know this. If you measure the galaxies and all the stars, everything is moving. This is talked about in the Rig Veda, which is a very interesting document. The Vedas are a series of texts that are pretty profound. And they actually talk about not only the 26,000 year cycle, it's really about 25,700 or 900 years around this central sun that our solar system makes. But it also talks about 250 million year galactic cycles. And all of this is moving. So the stars really aren't fixed. It's kind of a name that people picked, but they are stars. And in relationship to the planets and the solar system, they don't move nearly as fast because we keep going around them, but they're moving as well. So very powerful stuff and very indicative. I often find when people ask questions and interrogations, if I see benefic fixed stars applying, I always know that something good is about to happen that they don't expect, even further than what the aspects in the astrology show. And they truly are secret helpers and hinderers. And what I love is you go back into the ancient lore of many of the old cultures, you know, the Greece, the Egyptians, the Vedantic lore, they all talk about angels and deities that are connected to these fixed stars. And, you know, it's interesting, the children's cartoons, you read about the dragon legends, you know, and all these things about stars, how the dragons turned into a star or a soul ascended and turned into a star. There may be a lot more to that than we know. And I actually think stars are portals between the upper divine heavens that are bleeding through. It's interesting to talk to physicists. Again, I always quote Dr. Claude Swanson. I really enjoyed him. He just passed away here a few years back. And he did a lot of really amazing research into life force energy and what energy is and physics. And I used to come over to the house in Tucson, and we'd have coffee and just have some amazing discussions. And one of the things, you know, he would always say is, we don't know what energy is. And he said the stars, no one can really nail down what is the energy coming out of them. We know it's magnetics, we know it's gamma rays, all these measurable things that humans, you know, have figured out how to measure. But there's much, much more going on. There is a life force energy that we can't even categorize in physics or quantum physics. And he said some people think it's fission, other people think it's fusion, other people think it's plasma. Some people have even put forward a theory of the electric universe, that there's some kind of kinetic electric energy going on. I say they're portals between the upper dimensions and the lower heavens. They're literally portals bringing down the divine creation. You know, again, I always love this diagram. I'm going to fire that up again here. And you'll see my messy desktop here. But if I come back in here and show you this diagram, which I like a lot, is always the one that I like to go to. And a lot of people have asked me if they can get this diagram. And I always say, well, it's kind of hard to get it because I actually created this diagram. And I took it from a whole bunch of different ancient Hebraic texts. And I put it together that would make more sense. This is kind of a very simplified overview, and you can see that's exactly what I call it. And what I like about this diagram is it allows us to just conceptualize the incredibly complex, actually, in my opinion, uncomprehendable, depths of creation. And the stars are all down here in the Yetziratic world. This is why Yetzirah is a name called formation. It means this is where the molecular, what we call so far molecular creation of all matter is. And I think it's even more miraculous than that. This is where spirit gets concretized into the physical worlds. So astrologers are all running around saying, oh, you're a Pisces, you're an Aries, you're a this. And even the Vedic astrologers tend to indicate in the modern world that we're more our astrology and we're fated to it, which I agree somewhat, but I have to disagree because the religions were right about one thing, and that is we are souls, and our soul is created way the heck up here. There's no astrology up here. So you look at whatever your opinion of God is, you have divinity, right? And these Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Or are Aramaic words that actually shows, they're like filters that you put on a camera that actually brings the light of of God or creation down to where it can even be assimilated into creation itself. It's that bright. And this whole world up here, where they claim is the one element of is it's the world where souls are actually created. This is very divine stuff. And again, these are the angels, the seraphims, the cherubims, and the thrones. And you can see this is absolute, which is the creation of souls. And again, they claim there's 49 dimensions and 49 subdimensions. The next worlds down, Braya, is where this spirit becomes very much more dense and many spiritual worlds exist. This would be the definition that you would claim as the upper divinity of heavens, you know, where souls would go once they really start advancing. And what's interesting is the Yetziratic world is where astronomy, astrology, and all that happens. Because why? We're dealing with fixed stars that we can actually measure and see with telescopes. You know, the James Webb telescope's amazing, the images they're getting out of that. We're going to be showing stuff like that when we talk about fixed stars. Absolutely mind-blowing when you look at these gas clouds and these nebulae and all this stuff. I mean, you can't draw stuff like this. And to the flat earthers, I got to say, who's ever making this, if it's art, is way beyond creative. I don't believe that. But anyways, not to get into that whole subject. The bottom line is, Yetzirah is where good and evil combines. And this is even more interesting because what is matter? It's always a balance of some positive and negative charges. You know, we were talking about microphones the other day when I was on Archaics, and he liked my microphone. And that's because I have silver in here. Well, silver has the most free valence electrons, which is just a fancy word that means it's got a lot of electrons that are free to propagate back and forth. And what does that mean? Well, when it comes to audio, and I don't care how digital the world gets, it's still, we got to use air to hear things, right? So we are in an analog world. In fact, I'm with Joe Walsh. I'm an analog man. Anyways, the bottom line is, what's so important and why I say that is because when you look at just the hard sciences that we have right now, clearly we have a world that is built up of matter. These physical bodies are of matter. Our health is of matter, all these energies. And it's mind-boggling how complex it is. And why I'm going here is the stars, and our sun included, are, I believe, portals that are bringing down these divine, energetic, creational energies that is not even begun to be measured. You know, I mean, the magnetics and the healing properties. I mean, scientists and doctors will tell you, well, go out in the sun, you'll get vitamin D, right? And all these other things and healing. Like yesterday, I was really feeling not too well. And I went out and I just sat in the chair in the sun for about 15 minutes, and the rejuvenating power of that, it's so amazing. That's why I love getting out in the sun on the motorcycle, because it's really healing. And I know you kind of like sun too, don't you, Ella?
I love the sun. I can't live without it. I just love it,
Nobody
love it, love
can.
it.
Yeah.
Nobody can. I just love it. I just love it the way it feels on my skin, and it is healing. You can feel that. You can feel it. Let's go to a couple of questions, Jeff. I'm going to do these in order. Sybil, I'm going to get back to you. I just want to touch on Jay Henneman. Thanks for joining us. I want to touch on this question. What makes a star evil, since we're on fixed stars right now?
Well, that's a great question.
It is.
Um, well, again, now we start getting into angels. And it is believed, and this is where a lot of the ancient legends came from in many different cultures. If you study Vedic astrology, you really got to study the Vedas, because it talks about, we call them angels here in the West, they call them deities. And there are many deities who appear to have rebelled against God, right? Or divinity. And that's why they were cast down. This is why certain fixed stars have very evil qualities and others have very divine qualities. And some of them are all points in between. In fact, when you start looking at the descriptions of fixed stars, you literally got a menu of almost anything you can think of. And it's beyond, I mean, you'll never learn all the fixed stars. I know I have computer programs that actually I can click on and remember, oh yeah, that one means this one means that. Most astrology programs and also books will use certain signifactors to describe fixed stars. Like they'll say, this is a mixture of Venus and Mars. Well, what does that mean? Passion, right? And if you go look up the ancient descriptions of these, you'll find that it has some legend connected to passion, or there was something, artistic or sexual or creative or, intense about it. Other stars are very evil, like Mars and Saturn. Like Capitolgo is believed to have a mixture of Mars and Saturn. Well, what does that rule? That rules war, violence, cutting, and also restriction. So it really, every fixed star has a multitude of properties to it. And it is believed it's because of the angels. And this is why the legends were created. And again, if you look at all these constellations, even the astronomers have to concede that these ancient legends still affect the names today. And like you'll see the Great Bear and the Archer and this and Sagittarius. All these things are, someone has created a being or animal or some humanistic correlation to the arrangements of the stars in that constellation. And each one of those individual fixed stars are very, very powerful. And not all of them are coded. Like I've got several books here that they say every single degree of the zodiac is ruled by a star. And this gets even deeper down the rabbit hole, because now you start getting into the 27 lunar mansions, and the Egyptians used 28. And what's interesting about that is they call those the asterisms or the lunar mansions stars. So, you've got a lot of layers here of complex metaphoric correlations that tie into astrology. And even the skeptics have to concede, like I have a sad story to tell. This happened to me just last one. Didn't happen to me. It happened to a client. There was this beautiful little boy who was born. And I don't want to disclose who he was because I want to respect the parents' privacy. But he died on on the 20th, which would have been what? That was on
That was
Friday.
Friday.
It's Friday, and I got the call from the father, and it was just heartbreaking. I mean, I had a tear in my eye. I'm just like, this poor little boy. And I didn't remember, but I did a reading for them when he was first born. And I said, this child has a lot of karma, and if he gets through his 7th year, he'll be okay. But this early childhood, and it was kind of saddening because he couldn't. He was born, his eyelid muscles didn't work, so they had to do all kinds of things, uh, both naturally and medically, to try and get his eyelids so he could see and open his eyes. And he was a really smart little boy. Like he would clap with the parents, and they just loved him to death. And of course, he had 3 older siblings, and he had a fever and passed away exactly when Mars was aspecting this yoga. See, he was born with K2 Saturn and also Mars, all in a yoga in the chart, in a K2 dosha. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what I'm saying, the K2 dosha just simply means a tail of the dragon time period. And a lot of people have that. I had one here. I just got out of it a few years ago. My son is in one right now, and everybody I know who hits a K2 dosha is going to find a roller coaster ride. Like my son has had a really hard time, but a lot of us will get through it without too much problems. Well, this poor little child, right when Mars aspected that yoga, he contracted a fever, and it just got worse and worse. And it was so heartbreaking. And we discussed a lot of things about his soul. And I was really impressed with the parents, because they, obviously crying and just really, I mean, losing a child. I can't think of anything worse. I never want to experience that. And nor should I ever hope anybody else would have to experience their child being born, or I'm sorry, being passed before they pass. It's very traumatic, and a lot of parents go through this. So they were really advanced, and they said, we've been grieving, but we also want to look at why did this happen to this little soul. And I looked into it, and I thought, wow, there's a real possibility here that there was a karmic completion, because the father and the mother are very spiritually advanced people, and they're really nice people too, I might add. And they said we don't feel his soul around, and we usually feel when someone passes, their soul is around. And I did an interrogation. I said, I think there was a real karmic completion here, and that soul had moved on. Well, going full circle back to this diagram that we just had up, isn't this interesting? Because gets into some really deep down the rabbit hole stuff. And again, here comes fixed stars that might just be angelic receptors and portals. And when the soul exits the body, they say we go up into one of 7 lower dimensions. And no one knows 100% if this is always true. A lot of evil people or people with a lot of karma will go down into the 7 lower ones. And we keep ricocheting back and forth in what we call reincarnation, right? And sooner or later, the soul attains something called moksha. And there's a lot of indicators in Nadi and Vedic astrology about that term moksha, which means emancipation of the soul or escape from Alcatraz is what I call it, where we literally get out of the reincarnational processes. And there looked like there was something really kind of divine and completing for this little soul. And they didn't feel it around, and I didn't either. And when I cast the chart, it really looked like a blessing had completed. And now you get into what Vedic and Nadi astrology is really all about, is that we're all spiritual sojourners here. And again, I always mention the movie Avatar, and I think that's why people liked Avatar so much. It was one of the largest grossing movies ever. And I think the reason being is because it allowed us to kind of vicariously resonate with what we all feel. So, and now this diagram shows that we could go into many different worlds that are possibly much more advanced than this one spiritually. And there's also many they say are less advanced than this one, very barbaric. And then souls are believed to go dwell in this world of Braya, which is really supposed to be exceedingly divine, where the forces of good and evil are not at play. That's one belief, that they're not at play like they are down in the physical Yetziratic worlds and the universes. And I do say that plurally. And of course, a term that kind of got coined from the movie Chronicles of Riddick, the multiverses. And there's other movies that have mentioned stuff like this. But they claim there could be 49 parallel universes and 49 subdimensions. And again, now we start getting into what might be going on with all these UFOs and various different things. They literally could be dimension hoppers, or dimension shifting beings, and also various different, angelic forces coming in and out of here. So there's a lot going on this planet. I think there's a lot going on everywhere, and creation is beyond comprehension. But it's fun to look into these things from these perspectives and look at our lives from a different angle, because we're all worried about our money. It's always money, right? Always the health, always, physical pleasures, physical securities, you know. They say the biggest businesses in the world are the insurance companies, the banks, and the medical organizations. And you know what? They're right. And the military. Can't omit that, right? So it's all the fear of protecting against something, which there's nothing wrong with that. But we certainly are living lives fear-based. Society is rather fear-based.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, sending so many blessings to that family. I can't even imagine. I cannot even imagine.
And they are such wonderful people, such wonderful people. And, the kids too, the other children, it's really hard on them because they're older. You got children there that are 3, I think one's close to 10 and the other one's very close to a teenager. So, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, what a wonderful group of people. And that was really heartwarming too, because, the mother and father said it's brought the family even closer together.
Wow. So, God bless them. God bless them.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Let's make a shift here. Jeff, I'm going to take it to Sybil. How are you today, Sybil? Thanks. Sybil's always with us. Thanks for joining us. Sybil's saying, why do I feel the energy shifting or whatever is going on at least a couple of days before it actually happens? I've noticed this in the last couple of years.
No, no, read the first part of that. I couldn't hear it.
Oh, so sorry. Why do I feel the energy shifting or whatever is going on at least a couple days before it actually happens? I've noticed this in the last couple of years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, I always say, I think God created time so everything wouldn't happen at once. I really do. And what's interesting is if we got in touch with, the real true energies, the celestial influences, again, are always not, they don't just happen instantly. They usually bring energies in. And again, this gets into intuition, remote viewing, psychic work, all this type of stuff. Um, we're in what I like to call the soul matrix of time, and again, there is no time. Well, I think there's divine time, whatever that is, in whatever reference point that is. They talk about angels, where some of the life of the upper angels could be exceedingly long. And look at speaking of fixed stars or stars, if you will. I mean, the suns last billions of years measured in human terms. So, these energies, it's all about time down here. And premonitions often happen because people are tapping in to energies outside of time. And again, I always quote Dr. Wickland's work, The 30 Years Among the Dead, where a lot of these people, once they pass on, don't even know they're dead. And they only realize their condition because they were, able to speak through his wife. There was one in the book Freeing the Captives, there was one little boy who was possessing a girl, and Dr. Fry, under hypnosis, got this girl, subdued, and she started speaking to this little boy in her aura. And talk about time. The best she could tell by what he said and what was happening, he actually went on a ship, and she figured it out. That was probably somewhere in the late 1500s. He had been lost in the astral planes for over 400 years. And his mother didn't want him to go down to the wharves because she heard all the stories about how these ship captains would take in cabin boys. They'd bring water and help do chores or whatever. And apparently he did that. He got on a ship and took off. It was apparently out of England. And the ship was heading somewhere in the Middle East to pick up spices or whatever they did, and hit a storm, and he died. And she actually, in dialogue, got him to figure it out. And everything he knew in his consciousness was from about that era. And she actually did research and verified a lot of what he said. And there again, talk about premonitions and time. There is no time. And if we could step outside of our egoic structures of conscious reality, we would find there's a whole bunch of realities going on outside of what we call time. And premonitions often come from that. This is what remote viewers are doing. When they hit targets, they're trying to escape the normal, you could say, linear progression of things. And there's a lot of theories to that, and there's a lot of methods to that. But it's deep stuff.
So deep and so fascinating. So I know we don't have time for any more questions. We get so many, and I always screenshot them and keep them for next time. This week is a little different for us. I had thought we were going to be, well, our normal time is Monday and Thursday. This week it's going to be Monday and Saturday. But then we'll go back the next week to Monday and Thursday. So we hope everyone can join us on Saturday at 9 a.m. And any last thoughts, Jeff?
No, I mean, that's all I've got to say right now.
Well, again, I'll say happy fall equinox to everyone and have a beautiful day, a beautiful week ahead.